Dear Excellencies, colleagues, dear participants, really happy and honored, and thank you, Tuan, for the invitation to the Boston Global Forum. The idea of the AIWS World Society is about setting principles to have a new social contract so that we can have pro-social AI systems that are good for society. And I think I'm here both to share some experiences that Taiwan had in the past decade about how exactly to do that, and also to illustrate some principles that are universally applicable so that we can design it in our political and social systems going forward. Now, 10 years ago, that was our first experience to encounter this massive societal effects of AI systems. That was not generative AI, but rather social media. There's this recommendation systems that makes things go viral, that polarizes the society and surface the most extreme voices from all the different camps in our society. I mean, not just Taiwan, really, but Taiwan was one of the most connected societies already 10 years ago, and therefore suffered the most from this new phenomenon back then. Indeed, by 2013, the trust level from our citizens to our democratically elected administration was at 9%, which did not improve in 2014. So the 9% was not very high. We're a society with 23 million people, and that means whatever the government says, 20 million people automatically said no to it, which makes it very difficult to govern. And also, the polarization level was at historic high. But we did not stop there. We invested in what's called pro-social AI to cure that polarization. We invented systems that, as the conversations goes on, it surfaces the voices that bridges the divide and balances the internal communities. And so by 2020 already, our trust level is back at over 70%. And so this dramatic increase started with a demonstration. So as you saw in the trailer, there was this 3-week conversation, thoroughly nonviolent occupy of the parliament. And we didn't call ourselves protesters. Protesters are against something. We're demonstrators. Demonstrators are for something new. So we're there to show, as the Parliament at the time were not able to deliberate a trade agreement with Beijing substantially. We then held the place and 500,000 people on the street, many more online. Anyone can join any of those civic assemblies, conversations around the occupied parliament. So some debated the effect of Huawei and ZTE on our then new 4G systems. Some people debated about human rights, about environmental rights, so on and so forth. But because there's a facilitated space with live streaming, every day we look at the balanced diversity of different ideas, as well as the rough consensus, the bridging ideas that brings people a little bit closer. And then we read it out to the plenary, to everybody online, and then the next day we start deliberating on something that is even more specific. The upshot is that after 3 weeks of nonviolent deliberation, we managed to agree on a set of very coherent demands that the Speaker of the Parliament at the time, Wang Jinping, eventually said, okay, let's just go with it. You won, right? So that is one of the very rare Occupy, thanks to these facilitative technologies that managed to converge instead of diverge. And so after this deliberation, at the end of 2014, all the mayoral candidates that are for open government civic participation got elected, sometimes surprising to even themselves. And all the mayoral candidates that did not have this as their platform lost the election. And so at the end of that year, we, the civic activists, were invited as reverse mentors, young advisors to the cabinet to develop this system so that people can have a similar demonstration online without the need to occupy the parliament for each controversial issue. We can mirror this dynamic with online AI systems. In 2015, we started deploying this kind of bridging system. This particular one is called Polis. We've tried many different iterations of it. In 2015, there's another AI system that are polarizing the societies around the world. It's called Uber. And it's basically saying that people without professional driver's license can, drive strangers on the way to work and charge them for it. And some people say that it's good because it's sharing economy. Some people say it's very bad because it's extractive gig economy or something. So this society, again, polarized. But instead of letting it fester on the antisocial corners of social media, meaning Facebook and Twitter, we built our own more pro-social media, invited people in. So as you can see, here is a statement from your fellow citizen that says, okay, so insurance is important. Now, maybe you agree, maybe you don't, but there's no reply button, so there's no room for trolls to grow. And as you click agree or disagree, your avatar, that blue circle, start to move toward the groups that agree with you on these matters. The area of the group is measured by the diversity, the plurality, not the head count. So even 5,000 people come here, vote exactly the same, it would not actually increase the group. So what it does is that it makes transparent what the social media companies are hiding from its users. Instead of the anti-social corner social media that does targeted advertisement using the social fabric but strip mines the social fabric because people are trapped in their isolated timelines, this makes us radically transparent what exactly are the gaps in our conversations. And we also said that we only hold ourselves to account to the ideas that cuts across all four groups. So only if you can propose something that all the different groups, including the minority groups, all agree. Otherwise, your idea will not set the agenda for our Uber conversation and lawmaking. And so this is an incentive to raise to the top, not to the bottom of the brainstem, so that people really thought very, very hard about what is the kind of statement that can cut across. For example, people would have nuanced ideas like surge pricing is fine, but undercutting existing meters is not. Or that if we offer Uber a license to operate in urban areas, so should the rural co-ops, and so on and so forth. And so these very diplomatic, nuanced ideas eventually came to the top after 3 weeks of online conversation, and you literally saw those groups converge to the middle. And so by representing fairly, balancing, and bringing across, bridging, the balancing and the bridging algorithms at the end of the day shows people this picture. And people can very easily then say, oh, actually the antisocial corner of social media led us astray because we devote all our calories on the 5 divisive statements and thought that there it is, and we extremify, the sounds from the other tribes. But actually, we do agree with most of our neighbors on most of things most of the time. It was just not reflected back to us because that was not good for selling advertisements or something. And so that is the part of the pro-social media that we bring to the table. And once people get exposed to this kind of picture, it just depolarizes the society on that particular topic. And research showed that when somebody engaged in a deliberation of this sort, for the next year or two on this topic, they cannot be polarized again. They cannot be mobilized on outrage or hate and so on. And so in a sense, this is a civic competence. It is not literacy in terms of individual to individual consuming of media. This is the competence exercising the civic muscles so that people become, again, a polity instead of divided. So in 2019, we installed in our curriculum, all the school children are now required, instead of literacy classes, taking competence classes so that they contribute to the fact-finding, they contribute to this kind of consensus making. It's not just limited to Taiwan, because our contributions are open source. So at the time, Twitter adopted the police algorithm into Birdwatch, now community notes. Maybe some of you have seen in some of the viral posts on x.com now, maybe from Elon, there is a notes that's very sticky. You cannot repost it without also carrying the notes. And the note actually surfaces important context so that you're not led astray by the absurd claims, right? By the parent note, by the parent post. But how does those community notes get selected? Again, exactly the same algorithm as the police algorithm. Anyone can contribute notes, but the algorithm shows maybe the wing on the left is a cluster, the wing on the right is the cluster, but only the notes that are broadly helpful, meaning if both groups that don't usually agree on one another's ideas, both happen to agree on something that's broadly helpful, do the notes get surfaced to the top because it is bridging. As we can see, X.com is a more polarized society than Taiwan. Instead of broadly helpful dominating, the left wing and the right wing actually dominates, but there is still some broadly helpful nodes. And now we're working on the idea of a super node, which is a language model, an AI, that takes the scattered dots on the top, the broadly helpful nodes, and writes something that describes the entire overtone window. And again, research shows that if people see this synthesized super nodes, again, it very much quickly depolarizes the society because people can see exactly where the overtone window are. And we're now working with Google Jigsaw to also deploy this technology to YouTube as well as other Google-based platforms. Now, to recap quickly, the core insight here is that instead of individuals receiving their own timelines and therefore polarizes people because we can't even share what is actually on our timeline, this idea of plurality, which is symbolized by this overlapping dotted squares, says that connection between individuals should be the first class objects. Once we discover that we form some groups, we can then surface a common experience to the group. And the common experience that cuts across groups, for example, for all the Taiwanese people, regardless of their party affiliation or ethnic or religion, winning the baseball together was kind of a shared experience. So if we share that experience, it automatically brings the groups closer because then we can refer to a shared peak experience that then describes the common ideas. And there's all sorts of ways of doing that. In the plurality book, which is freely available online, we look at the current ways. For example, across two people, there's intimacy, which is very high bandwidth, but very small amount of people. Conversation, which is maybe thousands of people using natural language. But once you hit like millions of people, tens of millions of people, you can only use voting, which is a vector, or capitalism, which is a scalar. So currently, there's this productivity frontier that makes us do a trade-off between the depth of conversation and the breadth of conversation. And the pro-social technologies that I just described is about pushing rightward and upward, using AI so that we can have the same depth of conversation but with more people, or with the same amount of people but deeper. And so I'm going to illustrate with some concrete examples because this can get very abstract. So President Macron, in his message, talked about deepfakes and how it led people astray from common facts into just individual opinions. In Taiwan, we also feel that threat very much. So this March, we started an alignment assembly, a citizens' assembly online to align AI systems so that the people doing deepfakes online can get some sort of pushback, and we want the social media platforms, the advertisement platforms, to assume liability if they let those deepfakes run rampant. But again, Taiwanese people don't like government censorship. So where exactly is the overtone window? That is the question. So we sent more than this is actually 200. Anyway, so we sent 200,000 SMS text messages to random numbers in Taiwan so that everybody has a roughly equal chance of receiving an SMS. Again, we asked them, how do you feel about information integrity, deepfakes online? And they let us know. But we also asked in that survey that would you like to attend an online citizens assembly for like half a day, almost a day of time, and talk it through with your fellow citizens on what is acceptable and measure? A lot of people sign up. And so we use stratified random sampling sortation to choose 450 people that we know are representative of the Taiwanese society in terms of gender, occupation, place they live, and so on. And then the 450 people gathered online in 45 rooms of 10 people each. So each person saw this 3 by 3 of other people, and they just talked. And the great thing about the online deliberation platform, which we partner with Stanford, was that there's no human facilitator. So instead of 45 human facilitator, it is an AI that captures the transcript in real time, that nudges the people who are quiet to speak up, that synthesizes the ideas present in the room and let people vote whether it's time to move on to the next topic. And also, in the same time, because the real-time transcript is produced, we can use AI, like the Supernote, to synthesize best idea from those 45 rooms into one coherent idea that can then be read back to the plenary or to the stakeholders. For example, one room may say, the deepfakes, like Elon Musk selling crypto scam, should get a digital signature from Elon Musk. Otherwise, it should be construed as fake by default. Maybe another room says if the social media platforms do this and somebody gets scammed for 1 million, they should be liable for that 1 million. We shouldn't just fine them because they'll just pay the fine. We should make them liable. Maybe another room says if they don't want to comply, maybe we can slow down the connection to Facebook. And maybe next room would say all this should be proportional, so we should only apply it to the platforms that reach more than 5% of Taiwanese population, so on and so forth. And so as the consensus start gathering, we can merge them, stitch them together, and find exactly which ideas are complementary to each other, are even bridging across longer distances. And then that was in March, and in April, we checked that with the stakeholders, the usual suspects. They all said, yeah, it's possible, it's just very expensive. So, okay, that's not a problem. And so the draft law was sent to the parliament in May, passed in July, and we just got the news that starting January 1st, this will take effect in Taiwan, the obligatory KYC for online scamming, deepfake. And so I think that is a really good example, saying that this crowdsourced ideas, the will of the people, is like a trade negotiation. You can negotiate much better if you can show the other party that this is actually the collective will of your society, that it will not get pushed back from the society. And in fact, there are now banks, financial institutions in Taiwan saying if Facebook or other platform, including TikTok, YouTube, and Line, do not implement this KYC method, then they're not going to buy advertisement from those social media anymore. They're going to boycott them. So again, this has a way to depolarize the society and also instill a sense of consensus. And that is how we can evaluate whether those ideas are good or not on an ongoing basis, like a continuous democracy. And then when that happens, we can evolve our governance with the same speed as the emerging technologies. It's not just used in Taiwan. The same technology, Polis and Talk to the City, are now being deployed by the Tokyo metropolitan government, Koike-san. Koike-san, when she ran for the third time, the governor election, she has a challenger, Takahiro Ano-san, who is 33 years old, an AI engineer. He was never into politics, but he read the Plurality book and had a video conference with me. And he's like, yeah, I don't have a platform, but I can crowdsource a platform. So what he did is that he asked people to hashtag Tokyo AI and suggest anything that the Tokyo platform can use. He has a VTuber avatar of himself that's streaming 24/7, and anyone can call his voice clone to have a conversation with Takahiro Ano. So this very, like he called it broad listening, the reverse of broadcasting, right? So this broad listening candidate crowdsourced a platform that is independently ranked as the best platform of all the people running for Tokyo governor. Koike-san was the second. But of course, he didn't win. But he did get the most votes for anyone under 40 years old for the Tokyo gubernatorial election. So when Koike-san won, and we had a conversation, she said she's very impressed with Ano-san, going to work with him. And so now Ano-san advises the Tokyo GovTech. And they are now, as we speak, doing a consultation for the future of Tokyo using exactly the same method. And so we're seeing that this method is generally applicable, not just for the elections phase, but also for the governing phase. Actually, the mayor here, Michelle, was the first to use the broad listening, just for the record, during her campaign period to listen from people in Boston, partnering this time with the MIT CCC. And MIT CCC is now also working with the counterpart, the Cortico nonprofit entrepreneurs. And Cortico systems take this idea, broad listening, but do it in the face-to-face setting. So that for each like school, for each like campus, for each maybe places of worship, for each places of journalism and so on, people can't just sit down and have a conversation on any topic with one of the participants' phone, but just recording this conversation. And now they have the research that can anonymize the conversation so that the nonverbal part, the prosody, gets retained, but you cannot identify back who said that. So it's good for highly controversial conversations about encampments, for example, and many other things. And so once this happens, again, using the broad listening techniques, they can do a sense-making, showing the different very diverse, polarized groups, what kind of utterances during those face-to-face conversations are resonating, both within the group, but also across the groups. And then they weave together using AI as a co-pilot, a medley, so that people can listen to that medley and know that people who we think are very polarized from us actually share some very basic feelings and basic facts. And again, there's research that shows that this really brings people together and has great peacemaking potential. And so now we're working with online social media, such as Blue Sky, to weave this into their algorithms, so that if you go to Blue Sky and go to one of those curated algorithmic feeds, you will see the kind of feed that brings the groups together instead of things that drive people apart. They will be transparent in showing that which communities are contributing to this feed. And maybe in the future, there's ways for people to commission, to sponsor the advertisement that create a sort of shared experience that would then heal the polarization very much present in the US society right now. So now we're working on this pro-social media algorithm with Blue Sky. But not just Blue Sky. Here in Boston, there's the civic entrepreneur, Frank McCourt, that is putting together a people's bid at thepeoplesbid.com that wants to basically buy TikTok before it's banned on the last day of the Biden administration. The hope is that we can turn TikTok into something like a, I don't know, free talk, we talk, something that is open, that is like Blue Sky, making sure that the creators on TikTok can take their creations and their followers into this decentralized Fediverse, this ecosystem, so that people can then curate a different view on TikTok instead of trapping people into the TikTok ecosystem where people do want to leave, but nobody wants to be the first to leave. They can migrate to something that is offering better pro-social algorithm without losing their content and social graph and relationships. So the Project Liberty Summit, which was just held in DC last week, talk about the concrete ways in doing that for TikTok, but also for MeWe, for Blue Sky, for all the newer generation of social media. So I think that is how we can turn something that is very much like a singularity of preferences. The more you use Twitter, the more your personality just converge to this particular kind of attention seeking into something that's more pro-social, more plurality, that is balancing within the community and bridging across communities. So I'd like to end on a personal note. In 2016, when I was first nominated digital minister, Taiwan did not have a digital minister. So the HR people from the cabinet asked me to write a job description of what digital minister means to the people. And in Taiwan, the Mandarin 数位 means both digital, but also plural, as in 不止一位, more than one, several, many. So I'm not just a digital minister, but also minister for plurality. And so I wrote a prayer, a poem, that is my job description. It goes like this. When we see the Internet of Things, let's make it an Internet of beings. When we see virtual reality, let's make it a shared reality. When we see machine learning, let's make it collaborative learning. When we see user experience, let's make it about human experience. And whenever we hear that a singularity is near, let us always remember the plurality is here. Thank you so much.